Elena Cruz pressed her forehead against the rattling train window, watching the blurred city lights streak past like tired fireflies. Her body ached from the double shift at the diner, her feet swollen from hours of running between greasy tables and barking customers. The scent of coffee grounds and fried onions still clung to her uniform, but exhaustion had dulled her awareness of it. She told herself she couldn't sleep, not here, not now. If she missed her stop, it would mean walking 2 more miles in the dark to her apartment, a leaky, shoebox-sized studio with peeling paint and a landlord who pretended not to notice the broken heater. But her eyelids betrayed her. They grew heavier with each clack of the train, and her body leaned sideways before she could catch herself. Her cheek landed on something firm yet warm. Startled, she jerked slightly, but the stranger beside her didn't move away. Instead, a voice low and steady reached her ears. "Relax, rest." The tone carried a quiet command, not cruel, but confident in a way that made her heart stutter. She tilted her eyes upward just enough to see him. A man in a tailored charcoal suit, the fabric so sharp it seemed to belong on a magazine cover rather than this late-night commuter train. His jaw was strong, clean-shaven, his expression focused on the sleek laptop balanced on his knees. The glow of the screen lit up eyes that looked like storm clouds gathering, serious, intense, and far too sharp for her comfort. Elena's face burned. She was a waitress who counted loose tips at the end of the night. He was the kind of man who probably owned skyscrapers. Yet, he didn't shrug her off. He didn't even shift an inch. He simply let her head rest against him as though he'd expected it all along. The rocking of the train lulled her, and she slipped into sleep before she could scold herself for it. When she opened her eyes again, everything was wrong. The train was gone. Instead of hard plastic seats, she lay on a cushioned swing draped in wool blankets. The air smelled of fresh grass, hay, and something faintly sweet, honeysuckle maybe. The night was quiet, broken only by the distant whinny of horses. She sat up too quickly, the swing creaking beneath her weight. "This isn't my stop," she whispered. "No, it isn't," the same deep voice answered. She whipped her head around. Standing at the edge of the wide wooden porch was the man from the train. Only now, his suit jacket was gone, his sleeves rolled to his elbows. Without the sterile light of the train, he looked different, less untouchable, though still impossibly composed. His forearms were strong, dusted with faint marks that looked suspiciously like work rather than boardroom polish. Elena scrambled to her feet, clutching the blanket around her shoulders. Where am I? What did you do?" He regarded her calmly. "You're safe. This is my ranch." "You're what?" She gawked at the rolling hills beyond the porch, the silhouette of stables, and the vast spread of land under the moonlight. It looked like something pulled straight from a dream, far from the choking smog of the city. "You fell asleep," he said matter-of-factly. "You looked like you needed it. When the train reached my stop, I didn't wake you. I thought a night here might serve you better than the streets." Her jaw dropped. You brought me to your ranch. Without asking. Are you insane?" The faintest smile tugged at his lips. "Perhaps. But you didn't resist." "I was asleep," she hissed, incredulous. "Exactly," he replied, unbothered. "That kind of exhaustion is dangerous. I've seen it before." She stared at him, trying to piece together this absurd puzzle. "Who are you?" "Adrian Blackwood." The name clanged in her memory. She had overheard it, at the diner, once, when 2 businessmen had gossiped about the youngest CEO in the city. The Blackwood fortune doubled under him before 30. That Adrian Blackwood, her chest tightened. She was wrapped in his blanket, on his porch, in the middle of land that probably stretched farther than her whole neighborhood. "This is insane," she muttered, stumbling toward the steps. "I should go. I need to get back." Adrian's gaze softened but still carried that infuriating edge of authority. "There's no train until morning. Stay the night. Tomorrow, I'll have a driver take you back." Every nerve in her body screamed that she should run, that this was dangerous. But her legs, traitorous and trembling, stayed rooted to the porch. She sank back onto the swing, the stars overhead burning brighter than she had ever seen. And for the first time in months, she let herself breathe. The morning sun streamed through the guest room window, waking her with warmth she wasn't used to. Elena sat up in the oversized bed, momentarily convinced she was still dreaming. The soft linen sheets, the wide oak furniture, the faint sound of horses outside, it was too surreal. The smell of coffee lured her downstairs. Adrian was already at the long wooden table, reading a newspaper as though nothing in the world could disturb him. He wore a crisp white shirt, sleeves rolled again, collar undone. "You're awake," he said without looking up. "Sit, eat." "I should really go," Elena mumbled, twisting her hands. "You will," he said, setting the paper aside. "But not before breakfast." The table was spread with eggs, fresh bread, fruit, and steaming coffee, more food than she usually managed in a week. Her stomach growled loud enough to make her blush. Adrian raised an eyebrow, the ghost of a smile flickering across his face. Against her better judgment, she sat. They ate mostly in silence, but Elena couldn't stop stealing glances at him. A man who commanded boardrooms, yet seemed so at home here among worn wood and open fields. Finally, she broke. "Why did you really bring me here?" Adrian met her gaze, eyes dark but steady. "Because you reminded me of someone I used to be. Someone carrying the world alone. I know what that does to a person." Her throat tightened. No one had ever said something like that to her. She was used to being invisible, the tired waitress, the tenant scraping rent, the girl landlords barely remembered. But here he was, seeing her too clearly. "I can't." "Oh you," she whispered. "You don't," he said simply. But she wasn't sure she believed him. People like Adrian Blackwood didn't do things without reason. The day unfolded in strange ease. Adrian showed her the stables, where a stubborn foal nibbled at her sleeve until she laughed, a sound she hadn't heard from herself in months. He led her through fields where wildflowers pushed stubbornly through the grass, and down to a lake where willows bent low, their reflection swaying in the water. Workers greeted Adrian not as a distant employer, but with respect born of familiarity. He wasn't just a CEO here. He was a man who belonged to the land, who had dirt beneath his fingernails and sun on his skin. Elena found herself softening, though she knew she shouldn't. This wasn't her world. Her life was in the city, messy, cramped, and heavy as it was. That evening, she stood again on the porch, the horizon painted in fire as the sun sank. Adrian joined her silently, his presence filling the space beside her. "You'll have a driver in the morning," he said. "You can go back." She nodded, though the thought twisted her stomach strangely. "Why me?" she asked again, softer this time. For a long moment, he didn't answer. Then, with a rare crack in his carefully controlled voice, he said, "Because sometimes the people who have nothing remind you what everything is really worth." Her heart stumbled. She should have looked away. But his gaze held hers, steady, unyielding, searching. The silence stretched, heavy with words unsaid, and beneath the vast expanse of sky, Elena felt it, the beginning of something dangerous. Something tender. Something that could unravel her entire world. And for the first time, she wasn't sure she wanted to run. The city train rattled down the dark tracks, the stale air filled with the mingled scent of sweat, cheap instant noodles, and rain-damp coats. Elena Cruz sat slumped in her seat, fighting to keep her eyes open. She'd worked a double shift at the diner, her feet aching from 12 hours of running between sticky tables and grumpy customers. Rent was due in 2 days. Her tips barely covered groceries. Just a few more stops. Stay awake. But exhaustion betrayed her. Her eyelids drooped, and her head tipped sideways. Instead of jerking upright, she landed against the shoulder of the man beside her. She startled, about to pull back, but a deep voice rumbled low. "It's fine. Rest." The words weren't casual. They carried the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Elena blinked up at him. He was sharply dressed in a charcoal suit, his wristwatch gleaming faintly in the flickering train lights. His eyes, focused on a sleek laptop, looked like storms contained in glass, serious, powerful, unreadable. Heat rose to her cheeks. She was a waitress who counted change to make rent. He looked like he signed checks worth more than her entire life savings. Yet he didn't move. He let her stay. The train rocked gently, and before Elena could stop herself, her breathing slowed. She fell asleep. When she woke, everything was wrong. The screech of train tracks was gone. Instead, she heard birdsong and the distant whinny of horses. She sat up in alarm. Beneath her was a cushioned swing, draped in a wool blanket. Around her stretched open land, rolling fields, a wide wooden porch, the smell of hay and fresh air. "This isn't my stop," she whispered. "No, it isn't." The same voice. She spun around. The man from the train stood at the porch railing, his jacket gone, his sleeves rolled up. He looked less like a businessman and more like someone who belonged here, in the stillness of open skies. Her chest tightened. "Where am I? What happened?" "My ranch," he replied simply. "You were exhausted. I didn't wake you when the train stopped. I thought you needed this more than the streets tonight. Her eyes widened. You kidnapped me. His lips curved slightly, almost amused. That's a strong word. I brought you to safety. You were asleep the whole way. You didn't protest. I was unconscious. She shot back. You trusted me without realizing it, he countered calmly. Elena's pulse raced. Who even are you? Adrian Blackwood. The name hit her like a splash of cold water. She'd heard it whispered at the diner. The youngest CEO in the city, the man who doubled the Blackwood fortune before 30. That Adrian Blackwood. Her knees nearly buckled. This is insane. I should go. There's no train until morning, he said. Stay tonight. Tomorrow, I'll have a driver take you home. She opened her mouth to argue, but her exhausted legs betrayed her. Slowly, she sank back into the swing. The stars stretched endlessly overhead, brighter than she'd ever seen through the smog of the city. And for the first time in a long while, Elena let herself breathe. Part 2. Elena woke in a sunlit guest room, the kind she'd only seen in glossy magazines. Wide oak furniture, linen sheets softer than clouds, windows that overlooked miles of green. She rubbed her eyes. It was real. She was still here. The smell of coffee led her downstairs. Adrian sat at a long wooden table, sleeves rolled, a newspaper in hand. He looked both polished and strangely human, like the city and the ranch belonged equally to him. You're awake, he said without looking up. Sit, eat. I should really go. You will, he interrupted smoothly. But not before breakfast. The table was covered with eggs, bread, fruit, steaming coffee. More food than she'd seen in a week. Her stomach betrayed her with a loud growl. Adrian's lips twitched with faint amusement. She ate, despite herself. Silence stretched until Elena finally asked, "Why did you bring me here?" Really? Adrian folded the paper, his gaze meeting hers. Because you reminded me of someone I used to be. Someone carrying too much alone. I recognized it. I couldn't just let you keep going like that. The words pierced her chest. Nobody had ever said something like that to her. She was used to being invisible, to fading into the background. Yet here was Adrian Blackwood, seeing her too clearly. I can't. Oh you, she whispered. You don't. His tone was final, but his eyes carried something unspoken. The day unfolded like a dream. Adrian showed her the ranch, the stables, the wide fields, the sparkling lake hidden at the far end. Workers greeted him with respect, not fear. He wasn't just a CEO here. He was a man who rolled up his sleeves, who knew the land. A foal nibbled at Elena's sleeve, making her laugh out loud. Adrian watched her with a softened expression she didn't understand. By evening, she stood again on the porch, watching the sun paint the horizon in fire. Adrian joined her, his presence steady beside her. You'll have a driver tomorrow, he said. You can go back. She nodded, but the thought twisted her stomach in a way she couldn't name. Why me? She asked again, her voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated, then said softly, because sometimes, the people who have nothing remind you what everything is really worth. Her heart stumbled. His gaze held hers, steady and searching, and for a moment the air between them felt charged, fragile, dangerous. Elena should have looked away. She should have remembered who she was and who he was, two lives that didn't fit together. But instead, she stood frozen beneath the endless sky, realizing she was at the edge of something she couldn't walk away from. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't sure she wanted to.